welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading other people. So one of my favorite golfers of all time is Jack Nicklaus. And I got the opportunity once to see this fine, great man in person. I was at a senior PGA event, and I was at the tee box with him, watching him tee off, so I was only a few feet away from him. Unbelievable. So for those of you who are golfers, you may have followed his career, but there's one story that I love about Jack Nicklaus, and it helps explain who he is and what made him so great. And he was at a press conference after one of the major tournaments and that he had won. And he was talking about, he made a comment, and he made it just pretty, matter-of-factly. And that comment was, I have never three-putted or missed a putt within 5 feet on the last hole of a tournament. So hole number 72. Now, the last hole of a tournament, of a 4-day tournament, is by far the most, just stressful, right? You've got some of these major tournaments come down to just one putt, one stroke, and that's the difference between winning and coming in second place. And, tons and tons of money and all that other stuff. So the thought of that is just incredible. Now, for those of you who have golfed, three-putting is not that big of a deal. And obviously, most of us 4-putt, 5-putt, 6-putt, and then some. But that was a pretty bold statement for even the king himself and the golden bear that was just the top of the sport. But one person in the audience was thinking about that, and he said, I don't think that's true. And he started thinking about that, and he said, no, that's definitely not true. And he was thinking, do I say something? Do I raise my hand? Do I not? And he decided, I can't let him get away with that comment. I got to at least ask him about it. So he raises his hand, and Jack, calls on him, and he says, Mr. Nicklaus, I just, you made a comment a couple minutes ago, and I just want to ask you about it. You said that you've never three-putted on the last hole of a tournament before. And Jack said, no, I've never three-putted in the last hole of a tournament. And the guy said, well, yeah, you have. I've seen you three-putt before. And again, with all due respect, that's nothing wrong with that. You're still a major, champion. And Jack thought for a minute, and he said, no, you're wrong. I've never three-putted. And so he kept going on and blah, 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 blah. And a couple minutes later, he's like, no, that's totally not the case. I know he's three-putted. And he's thinking, do I challenge him again? And he raised his hand again. And he said, Mr. Nicklaus, again, with all due respect, you have three-putted. I've seen you three-putt. In fact, it was on the Masters tournament just a month ago where you won, but you three-putted on the 72nd hole. I remember your approach shot came and left you with about a 25-foot putt. Your first putt actually lagged and was about 10 feet away. Your second putt lipped out. Do you remember that? And then your third putt was in. That was just there like a month ago. I just saw it. He said, I can even send you the video if you want. And Jack was like, thought about it for a second. He said, no, I've never three-putted in a major tournament. And this guy was like, what? I don't get it. So he went to, afterwards, this guy went to Jack's coach and said, I don't get it. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, obviously everybody three-putts, and he's still, Jack Nicklaus. I mean, he's the best in the world. But why would he not admit to that? And Jack's coach said to this guy, he said, let me ask you something. What's your handicap? And this guy said, well, I like 16, which, for those of you who don't play golf, that's a very average golfer, or maybe a little bit above average. And he said, okay. He said, have you three-putted before? And the guy said, well, of course. He said, okay, so you want Jack Nicklaus, the world's best golfer, to think like you do, a 16 handicap. And this guy was like, all right, okay, I get it. So the point is, you've got a guy like this that refuses to believe, or at least acknowledge, something that's pretty basic, but he's convinced himself to the point that he believes that he does not three-putt. Now, in the back deep recesses of Jack's brain, I'm sure he realizes he's three-putted before, but think about this. The next time he's in a major tournament and he's standing over his second putt on the 72nd hole of the tournament that he has to make in order to win that championship, what are the chances that he's going to be thinking he's going to miss? He's not, right? He's not at all. And it's amazing when you talk to great leaders, great athletes, great entertainers, whatever it is, great business people, great salespeople. They all have a mentality that they are almost, in some respects, invincible with some areas of their life. They feel like they've got total confidence and total control. And some of that comes from this. It comes from that changing your mentality and just thinking totally differently and convincing yourself of something. I go through exercises with leaders all the time and people that I coach, and I say, I want you to just write something down. Write down the words, I always blank. And then write down another one that says, I never blank. And just fill in the blanks. Take some time, do it. And I encourage you to do it also. Do this at home because it's interesting at what answers you will come up with. And I just always think that whatever you put in those blanks, I always, show up ready to play. I always do what I say I'm going to do. I always get stuff done on time. I always show up on time. I never go halfway. I always fully commit. Whatever it is that you're telling yourself is ultimately a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say, hey, I always get nervous when I stand up in front of a group of people. I always crack under pressure. I always tend to be the last one there. Whatever it is, whatever you say to yourself ultimately becomes reality. And it's amazing. It's unbelievably amazing. What I think about with myself is I know that if I spend time before a big event or big presentation or something like that, and I visualize, and I actually take time and do this, and I visualize the outcome, and I do this all the time when I do a big presentation. I have the same routine, and I visualize people coming up to me after the presentation, and I visualize what they look like. I visualize what they're saying. They're coming up to me saying, wow, man, that was the best presentation I've ever seen. That was awesome. I loved seeing you. When are you going to be speaking next? I visualize very specific things and very specific people. And more times than not, what I visualize not only comes true, but that person, in some cases, the same person, if I'm thinking about a specific individual that I may know, that same person will say, I've had that happen on occasions, will say the exact thing that I visualize them saying. It's unbelievable. But what I know is that it will always lead to a successful presentation. It has never failed me. And I know it will always lead to me doing the presentation with an A+ job, and it always turns out great. Now, I know that about myself. Now, I've convinced myself that that's always going to be the outcome, but it's also true. Now, I don't know what is it true because I believe it? Do I believe it because it actually is true and it does happen? Doesn't matter. I don't care. All I know is when I go into a presentation, if I think about it and visualize the outcome and whatever positive outcome I want, that will happen. And I'm not comparing myself with Jack Nicklaus. Jack's approach with golf is the same way. He just blocks out any possible chance of failure or negativity. He convinces himself it's absolutely not only improbable, but it's impossible. It just doesn't happen. So my point and the takeaway here today, try it with yourself. Take one thing. And we see this with kids all the time. And some of you maybe as a kid were told certain things about yourself that ultimately became part of who you are. I don't know if any of you were told that, hey, you know what, you're always late. And then before you knew it, you started always being late. Well, guess what? You know what? Being late is actually a choice. It's a decision that you make. I used to be late for a big part of my life all the time. It wasn't some of the time. Every single thing I went to, I was late. And it truly was, when I really started thinking about it and trying to figure it out, it was a decision. It was a decision I was making, that it was okay to be late, that it was acceptable, not only to me, but to the other people, that I was actually disrespecting their time. And that's all it is. I was disrespecting time, and people that are habitually late do that. But you ultimately become what people tell you you are. So if as a kid, people were saying, hey, you're so funny, you tell such great jokes. Well, you know what? You're going to actually start to tell better and better jokes. And you believe it, and you do, and you tell more, and you become better, and you become really funny. Some comedians have started their career that way. When people tell you, hey, you know what? You always do great under pressure. I don't know how you do it, but you always come out great under pressure. You do better under pressure than if there's no pressure. Well, guess what? As a kid, if you're told that, you start to believe that. You start to realize, hey, you know what? I am. And that helps you continue that, and you actually do become better and better under pressure. So it's interesting. They've done studies before, and they took kids that mathematically were exactly the same grouping. And they tested the same, they had the same aptitude, they had the same knowledge level, they had the same, backgrounds and everything. So it was a group of kids that were all on the same level playing field. And they took one group of kids and they put them in a separate room, and they told them that they were in there because they were mathematically gifted and they were truly like off the charts, like genius level. And they were in that group together for that specific reason. And what was fascinating about that is even though everybody in this group was at the same level, that group that was taken away and told that they were actually off the charts, super smart, mathematically gifted, actually became off the charts mathematically gifted. They actually started testing at incredibly high scores. They actually believed it and became it. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was unbelievable. But that's life. That's what happens. So when we start to absolutely tell ourselves something about us, do that exercise. Again, I always blank. I never blank. Or try something even a little different. When I'm in this type of situation, fill in the blank, I blank. Whatever, create your own little statement there. And it's really interesting to see when you start to really believe and put down on paper and just in your head these statements, that ultimately becomes who you are. Really, really fascinating stuff. So thanks, Jack Nicklaus, for a great story. Keep doing your thing. Thanks for listening, everybody. Again, I love your suggestions. Keep them coming. As you know, I love telling stories. I've got another podcast coming up, episode that we're going to talk about storytelling. How do you tell a great story? Why does it work as a leader? Why does it work telling great stories? And in anything, people are captivated by people who tell great stories. So keep your ideas coming. I greatly appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share, comments, all that kind of good stuff. And have a great day. Thanks, everybody.